17. And we'll read this in Greek, and then we'll just talk about it a lot in English, okay? This first one is just like tuto. They, lego. Diatheke, pro kek ku ro mene. Pro kek ku ro mene. Hippo, to, theou, to, meta, tetrakosia. I, triakonta, ete, genonos, nomos, ou, akiroi, eis, to, katargese, tain, epanglion. And I've got a real good reading girl here. I always get her to do this. I'm going to leave this here with you.
Thank you.
Because we need to look at that tonight. That's a real good expanded translation. It's not really a translation, it's an explanation. Amplified Bible, so we're going to look at that also. Now, he does a real good job of translating this verse right here and some of the ideas of it. Tuto is this. That's a little old demonstrative pronoun. This, moral, actually it starts out as the weak verse, the conjunctive particle. See that day there? You started out with a day. So you go day, which is moreover or but, this, I say, covenant, diatheke. What is the word for Hebrew covenant? What's the word in Hebrew for covenant?
Barit.
What is it?
Barit.
Barit. If you want to write this down, it looks like this. Okay? Barit. It's like what it looks like in Hebrew, okay? Barit. It reads backwards. All right? Barit. B-R-T-H. And then you got a hint down below us. Barit. All right. That means a cutting. And diatheke means to split also, kind of a cut also. It means a covenant, a contract, a division of words between two people that two people make. And then having been before ratified and confirmed and validated. That's what the next word means there. Prokikeromenade. Having been before ratified and confirmed and validated, hippo means by the agency of the God, to theou. Now you've heard of theology. Theology means the study of God. It comes right from this Greek word theos here, or theou, it's genitive singular masculine in this case. And then ho, see that definite article there, ho meta tetrakusia, 400 and kai, conjunction, 30, ete, years. All right, years. Watch it. You remember what the word for years in Hebrew is?
Shana.
Shana. I like the girl's name, Shana. All right, Shana. So here it is, ete, gagonos. Having become into being is what it literally says. Now that sounds funny to us, but having been to come into being. Having become into being. Law. All right, law, nomos. All right, nomos. Who? Not a kiroi. And that means disannulled, negated, unvalidated. Okay? And that word right there is used 3 times in the New Testament, and this is just one of the 3 times. Matthew 15:6 and Mark 7:13. 3 times this word's used in the New Testament. Ace. Can anybody rattle off the grammatical rule for ace? And it is ace in Greek, like this. All right? And in Hebrew, it looks like this. All right? Yeah. That's the sign of the direct object. In other words, sign of direct object, something is receiving action. Okay? It's the object. The object is going to be right after this. That's what it says. In the grammatical rule is what? Extension
or limitation
of thought or verbal action. Extension or limitation of thought or verbal action. Now, I don't drag you through all the grammar all the time, but this is one grammatical rule that you need to remember.
We heard you say it a few times.
Yeah, I've said it about 1,000,000 times. Brother Hubbard used to rattle that off to me all the time. Now, brother, this last week, Brother Carl E. Farrar, one of my teachers, I had Randy put up a couple of sermons by him. And what did you say, Randy, about him?
Sound like you, Jim.
Yeah, that's right. That's because I sound like him.
Must be
What
the
he
same train of
said,
thought there.
the same thought patterns. He had a great impact on my learning. That was the most well-read man that I ever saw in my life. He would read everything that had anything to do with theology or anthropology or biblical archaeology. And he'd order 2 books, one for me and one for him. Every Monday when I'd go to class, I'd come up and here's a stack of books he'd have sitting on his desk. He said, "Those are yours. Those are yours." And he wanted to make sure that I was well read also. Genesis 15 and 13 onward. What does this mean like this after a... What does that mean? Do anybody know? Have you seen this in books?
Yeah, I was wondering what it was.
All right. Have you ever seen this?
Reference?
Huh?
Reference to?
It means to read on. And then this one here basically means read the whole subject. F means read 15, 13, and onward. And 15, like 2, 3, 4 verses after that, or 6 verses, or whatever. And then 15:3, FF would mean the rest of the chapter. Just read it all. Okay? That's what that means. Now you know what that means. Did you know that, Randy?
Yeah. It looks like a forte in a sheet of music. You mean
Yeah.
loud.
There you go. All right. I teach you a little bit of video things every now and then that you didn't learn in college. Probably college professor didn't know it. Your Roman numerals also. Your Roman numerals. These. Like that. Those aren't Roman numerals. Those are Greek numerals that the Romans used, because the Greeks adapted the Romans, or the Romans adapted the Greek language and everything. They printed their coins in Greek, not in Latin. All right? This is the Greek alphabet. T-I-T. This is the iota. All right? So you see that. Throw a few little bitty things at you. All right, now let's go back and see what this verse says all the way. All right? Rebecca, number 17.
This is my argument. The law which began 430 years after the covenant concerning the coming Messiah does not and cannot annul the covenant previously established, ratified by God, so as to abolish the promise and make it void.
Okay, now what in the world is this talking about? What's it talking about?
There's no law that can ratify God's promise? Or this?
Well, the
The
promise that God made to Abraham. That's what we call an Abrahamic promise, okay? And then he repeated it in Jacob. All right, he repeated it to Jacob. Then Jacob blessed his son. All right, here we have Abraham now. God makes a promise to Abraham, and what does that promise to Abraham stand on? Epitheo mono. What did I just say? Upon God alone. All right, upon God. It's that Abrahamic covenant stands upon God alone. No one else. That's what we call an unconditional covenant. There are no conditions. God is going to bless Abraham regardless of what Abraham did. All right? And what was this boy's name? Isaac. Now, last Sunday morning, when did I preach about Isaac? Was that Wednesday night or Sunday morning?
Sunday morning.
The ungodly appetite? When was that, Randall? Isaac's ungodly appetite. Was that on Sunday morning? He thought with his belly.
I remember putting it on the website. Oh.
He thought was his belly. Is that door locked back there? Thought somebody was trying to get the door and was locked.
He sold his birthright.
Isaac liked Esau because he went out and caught wild game for him. Because he had a taste for wild game. It says in Hebrew that the taste of wild game was on his tongue all the time. That's what he thought about. It was on his mind all the time. So, now this is recapping this. Of course, some of you haven't been here, so I'm going to recap this. Okay? When it come time to bless Jacob, because Jacob had bought Isaac's birthright, or not Isaac, but Esau's birthright, because Esau absolutely despised his birthright. He hated his birthright. He hated the responsibilities he had. He wanted the rights, but he didn't want everything that went with it.
Responsibility.
The responsibility. And he came in hungry one day and said, "I'm hungry. Let me have some of that lentil soup." Now, I'm going to tell you something. Lentil soup was the cheapest commodity in the land. That was the cheapest thing that existed in the land. That was the food that was so readily available, and everybody could afford lentils. It was the cheapest thing. It's like beans, okay? He came in there, and he said, "Well, I'll tell you what, Esau, you give me your birthright, and I'll give you all the beans you want." "Well, fine. I don't care about my birthright. What good's it going to do me?" So he despised. Now, the word despise there means hated. He hated his birthright. And then when it come time for his daddy to bless him and to hand the birthright to him, Isaac knew about this. I can guarantee you Isaac knew about what happened here. There was no guessing. They've been talking of this in the camp for years. How that Esau threw away his birthright for a can of beans.
You think Isaac knew it?
Well, sure he did. There was no doubt about it. Because, boy, he said, "I got the taste of wild venison in my mouth." Esau, go out. Slip out there and go get me some venison. Go get me some wild game like I love. And he said, "Fix it up like I love it. And bring it to me, and I will bless you." Rebecca hears it, and she tells Jacob, "Jacob, your dad's going to circumvent you and Esau's covenant you made with each other, the contract that you made, and he's going to give the birthright to Esau." Now he said, "Go out and get me a goat. Go get me a goat. Bring me the goat, and I'll fix the meal just like your father said." And he said, "Yeah, but," he said, "he's a hairy stinker. He smells, and he's all hairy and everything." "Well," he said, "bring me in the goat skins when you get through, and I'm going to tie them on you." So, because Esau smelled like a goat, so she's going to fix him up and let him smell like a goat. So his daddy won't know who it is, and hairy arms and hairy on his neck. He put goat skin around his neck and on his arm. And he brought him in there, and she fixed the food like it is. He said, "Father, I'll be," is what he said. "Father." And he says, "Which son are you?" Like this. "Which son are you? Which one of my sons are you?" Because his voice sounded like Jacob. "Oh," he said, "I'm Esau, your eldest." And so he let me feel up because God had blind that rat. Esau, if he'd had his eyesight, he would have blessed the wrong son. So God had blinded him in the meanwhile, so he couldn't see. That wasn't no mistake. And so he come over there and he felt of him. And of course, Rebecca had fixed him up real good and sewn these goat skins on him. He smelled like a goat. He felt like a goat. And everything, he felt all around him and everything. Well, that's Esau, all right. You just sound like Jacob. So he began to bless him, and he blessed him. He wanted to bless the wrong man. Now, not only this, but Esau had gone out, and God told them not to marry among the Canaanites. Jacob was going to go marry one of Laban's children and bring back the people, the ones that he was supposed to be married to. Guess what Esau did? He went out and married him a Canaanite. a Hittite.
Twice, wasn't it?
Two, yeah, twice. And they stunk in their father and their mother's nostrils, is what it said. They stunk, just like Esau did. And that old man, because of that ungodly appetite, was going to bless that boy anyway. So God had to blind him so he wouldn't bless the right one, the wrong one. So there we have it, the ungodly appetite.
That was last week's.
That was last week's.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now let's go on down and look at some of these words. Having been before ratified and confirmed. Did you read all of that, Rebecca?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Brought into being. That covenant that God made with Abraham could never be abolished. And then later on, Jacob re-blessed his sons, and he said, you're going to have a king amongst you. We're going to have a king over Israel. And he blessed, which one was going to be the lion of the tribe of what? Judah. Judah was going to bring forth the Messiah. Okay? Judah was going to bring forth the Messiah, and he was going to be the Messiah king, and he was going to be David. As simple as that. You find out what he said in there. He said a ruler will not depart from between Jacob's knees until the what comes? Shiloh comes. In other words, the Messiah comes on the scene. We're going to have a king in Israel. So when Israel asked for a king, God wasn't ready to give him David because David wasn't old enough yet. So he said, you asked for a king, I'll give you Saul. And so they got the raspberries instead. They got old Saul. And they were sorry. But David came along, and we'll study about him on Sunday morning probably. Yes, brother.
Can I ask, why was it Judah? Because I remember tracing the patriarchs. It went from Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and then Joseph is what I remember seeing. But it wasn't Joseph. Jacob blessed Judah. Why was
Jacob adopted Joseph's sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, and made them so that Joseph got a double blessing. The king was going to come through Judah. That was where the Messiah was going to come through. All of them had their place, but Judah was going to be the one. So the lion of the tribe of Judah would come through. And he told them. And of course Joseph said that they were going to bow down to him. For a while, Joseph was the type of the Messiah. But
right?
he was the type.
That's why I was thinking maybe the Messiah.
Okay, now here we come on down. This is a covenant. The law, here we have way over here the promise at Abraham, okay? And then we come down, and we have Jacob, and then we have the reissuing of that. Isaac, Jacob, we have the reconfirmation of this covenant. That's, what kind of covenant is it? Unconditional covenant. It's not conditional. Now, Israel had a conditional covenant. To some extent. Some of it was conditional. All right? Saul's covenant that God made with him as a ruler was conditional, wasn't it? And when he broke the conditions, he was no longer ruler. And God anointed David when he was a boy to be the king because Saul had blown him. We come over here now to the Egyptian bondage for 430 years, basically. These covenants over here, even from here to here. Now, all the patriarchs, he lumps back here from Abraham through Jacob. They come into Egypt now. And then when they come out of Egypt, when God saves them out of Egypt and brings them into the land of Canaan, okay, he gives them a law. Actually, before he brings them into the land, he gives them the law. Now, which one of those covenants do you think is the strongest one? Is the law a conditional covenant? Absolutely. The conditional covenant. Did Israel ever keep the law? No. All right. They broke it. God called his little church out. The Lord called his little church out during his ministry. And he took the reins of the kingdom from Israel when he rode into Jerusalem on the back of a donkey, the foal of a donkey. All right? And took over the reins of the kingdom. Of course, the kingdom, they destroyed their king. They killed their king. They arrested him on false charges and crucified him and all of that. Well, now, Paul was looking back And he looks at back at the promises, and he goes back to Abraham. Abraham's the promise that cannot be broken. The law was broken. Which one's the greater? The Abrahamic covenant or the law? The Abrahamic covenant was much greater. So now read that one more time so we'll understand what he's talking about here now. I want you to listen closely to this.
This is my argument. The law which began 430 years after the covenant concerning the coming Messiah does not and cannot annul the covenant previously established, ratified by God, so as to abolish the promise and make it void.
Now you understand what he's talking about. All right, you got that one, Bill? That covenant was a greater covenant. This covenant did not abolish that covenant. This covenant is going to be done away with. It's going to be fulfilled. What do all the sacrifices represent? What did the tabernacle represent? What did the temple represent? All right, there you go. And when he came, it's all fulfilled. And we're not going to set aside any of the covenant or anything. We're not going to set it aside. Not the covenant of Abraham. The unconditional covenant is not going to be set aside. All right, so we got that one down. I know it sounds pretty complicated, but when you really figure it out, then it's easy. All right. Agar ek nomu. All right. Hey. Kleronomia. Ukete. X. Apongalios. Tu. De. Abram. De. Apongalios. Kekariste. Theos. See there, I didn't even have to say it, did I? Oh, Theos. All right. And by the way, that's not only singular masculine. That's the case of the subject. All right. For if out of the law, no longer out of promise but to the Abraham through promise he has given the God. All right. Now that's a little bit of rough translation here. Let's look at some of the words. Kleronomia. 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 Let's look at that word. Kleronomia. Kleros. All right. And nomia. What do you think that is? Or nomos. You get back to that. What is it? Kleros is a lot. That's a division. That's to split something. That's to divide it. That's to distribute it. Okay? Nomos. What is that? That's a law. Your name. What is your name, young lady?
Rebecca.
Rebecca what?
Klubnikin.
All right. Now, is that all your whole name?
No.
Could you tell me all your legal name?
My legal, Rebecca Lynn Klubnikin.
Okay, there you are. That's your whole name. Now, when you sign that down on a piece of paper, on a contract or something, is that legal?
Yeah.
That's really your name?
Yeah.
It's not forgery or anything?
No.
All right. That's it. That's your name according to law. Nomos. The name comes right out of nomos. Your name comes out of nomos. That word, nomos. Okay? By law, that is your name. And you can sign your name legally. Okay? That's nomos. Kleronomos. This means divided legally according to the law. That's the word inheritance. For if out of the law, the inheritance of the law, no longer out of promise, but to the Abraham through promise, he has given to the God. Now let's look at another, apongalia. Look at that word, apongalia. Apongalia. All right? What word in there do you think? Take that F off the front of it. What do you have?
Angalia?
Angalia. What does angalia mean?
That message?
Message or angel? An angel is a messenger. Apongalia. That means a confirmed and complicated and what we call a compound promise. The compound promise is what? The gospel. Did God preach the gospel unto Abraham? He sure did. He told him in his seed, singular, would all nations be blessed. All right? In the promise to the Abraham, Abraham. Remember his name was Abraham and then later on is Abraham. All right? Now in Greek it's just Abraham. Okay? Okay, but like this. And then he adds what in there? What did he add in there? A hey. A hey. What letter of the Hebrew alphabet is hey? What number? What number is it? 5. Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey. All right? Hey. Hey is also what? Say hey. 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 It's breath. It's life. Hey is the 5th. What is the number of grace in the Bible? 5. So here we have breath, we have life, and everything. Abraham. It's in there, in that word. So he adds life. Guess what he put in Sarai's name? Hey, grace. By grace she conceived, 90 years old. Abraham had a lot of kids. He was strong enough, virile enough to have children before she had, well, he had Ishmael, all right, and then he had more kids after Sarah died. He married another wife. He had some more, all right. So Abraham was able to, but by grace, the covenant was on grace. The covenant that was given to Abraham was grace. It was an unconditional covenant, not a conditional. That's why he put that number 5 in his name. Hey is also the number 5. If you go to the temple, which we're going to do, I don't have a picture of the temple, but out in front of the temple there were 10 little lavers and then one great big giant, what they call molten seed. Okay, that's when they baptized all the priests and everything in this great big thing. And they said it was 3 times the diameter. How do you figure out the circumference of something? What is that formula for? It's represented by this Greek letter. Pi. Okay? What's pi?
3.14 or something.
Yeah, 3.14. All right, plus. All right? A whole lot of other numbers. But when you do that then, but it says in the King James, in other words, it's 3 times the circumference. Is that correct or not? It's not correct. But when you go look at it in the Hebrew, you're going to find out it's pi times the circumference. It's got a little hey in there, which stands for something, and they figured it all out. Okay? Is that too complicated, Bill?
No,
But I mean, the Bible is beautiful. You go in there and you just try to find the mistakes in the Bible, all of a sudden you're going to get enlightened. You're going to be really enlightened as you go. Now, Rebecca, would you read number 18 now? Let's look at that.
For if the inheritance of the promise depends on observing the law, as these false teachers would like you to believe, it no longer depends on the promise. However, God gave it to Abraham as a free gift solely by virtue of his promise.
All right, what's the number for freedom and free and grace? H in his name. Same thing with Sarah. Put H in her name. Okay? Now, the cross references to these 2 last verses I'm going to give you real quick. Genesis 15:13, Exodus 12:40, Acts 7:16, Acts 7:6, that is, 1 Corinthians 1:28, 2:6, 15:24, and 26. And Romans 4:4. Now remember, the book of Galatians is like a miniature Romans. All right? Hebrews 6:14, Acts 7:5, and Matthew 21:38. These are the cross references to this. Now, the Abrahamic covenant was still in force even after the law came, wasn't it? That's what it means. The Abrahamic promise to Abraham, the law did not nullify it. When Jacob blessed his sons, he did not nullify the Abrahamic covenant. All he did was confirm it. And the law of Moses, all it does is to confirm the Abrahamic covenant. It does not nullify it. And not only that, but the law also showed man how weak he was to keep God's grace or his laws. that he would have to depend upon grace. Okay? He'd have to depend upon grace. 3:19 now, 3:19. Anybody say the first one? Rebecca, can you read that? 3:19. T. That's a good one. Anybody else? The next one. Who? Ho. Nomos. Remember, that's the name for name. Nomos. Ton. Paravasion. Karin. Pros ad te. Akris. On. F. Elthe. To. Sperma. Ho. Apangalete. Diatages. D. Angelon. N. Kari. Mesito. All right. Now let's look at this. Tidun honomos. Why, therefore, the law? Why, therefore, the law? Now that just works pretty good, just like it says. Why the law? Okay? Of the transgression, by reason, it was placed before, added until he may come, the seed to whom it has been promised, having been ordained. Right there, that word diatages, put down there. Did it come through at all? Have you got anything there at all? Okay, you need to write, having been ordained. Having been ordained, because I know it didn't come through some of the
We're talking about Jesus Christ here, right?
Yeah. D, and dia is a shortened form of dia. Angelon, angels. In kare mistheton. Why therefore the law of the transgression by reason was placed before, added until he may come, the seed to whom it has been promised, having been ordained through angels in hand of mediator, go between. Now let's just think about this one for a while. The transgressions. What does our little Amplified Bible say? What is the explanation there of number 19? Let's look at that, and then we'll look at it some more.
What then was the purpose of the law? It was added later on after the promise to disclose and expose to men their guilt because of transgressions, and to make men more conscious of the sinfulness of sin, and it was intended to be in effect until the seed, the descendant, the heir, should come, and and concerning whom the promise had been made. And the law, was arranged and ordained and appointed through the instrumentality of angels, and was given by the hand in the person of a go-between, an intermediary person, Moses, between God and man.
Okay, now let's go look at some of these words. All right? Brother John, are you following along here? There's some good stuff in here tonight. Good stuff. All right. Was placed before. All right. The seed, the sperma. That's literally where our word sperm comes right out of the seed. Jesus Christ would be the seed of God, and the form of a woman. God would put his seed in Mary. Mary would add the person of Jesus Christ, his form. In the Bible, in the Hebrew, it teaches that in the blood is what? Life. But when Adam sinned, his blood was contaminated with sin. So Jesus Christ, when he would be born into this world, since the man is the one that gives the blood to the family, to the child, a woman can have ovaries just full of eggs, but without sperm, there is no life. Okay? But when every child, the man gives blood and life to every child in a woman. From the sperm, it goes into the woman, and it gives life to those little eggs. All right? But every one of them is contaminated with sin and death. Adam's sin was contaminated with sin and death. So every child that ever was born of Adam was a sinner and destined to die. Okay? But the Messiah, since he did not come through the sperm of a man, the seed sperm of a man, but of God, he was not infected with a curse, nor with death, and only with life. So that's why Jesus could be born of a virgin without sin, because of that. That's what it's talking about. In Greek and Hebrew, it just bypasses all of it, just medical science and everything else, all at the same time. Beautiful. All right? It says here the seed. Of course, this seed is who?
Jesus.
To Jesus, the Messiah. Okay? And in Genesis 3:15, we have the first promise of the Messiah in the Bible. And it's going to be the seed of the woman. Not man. It wasn't the seed of Adam, the seed of the woman. The woman would give him form, but life would come from God himself. Okay? The seed to whom it has been promised, epi, en galate, third person singular, perfect indicative passive. All right? Perfect tense. It was done. When God spoke of it back there in the book of Genesis, it was as if it was already done. How long did Jesus stand as a lamb slain? From before the creation of anything. So Jesus was going to be the seed of the woman a long time ago. The book of Enoch, when it talks about the Messiah, he says the son of woman, not the son of man, the son of woman. He would be the son of woman and not the son of man. The son of man only generically that he was son of mankind. That God would become related to us in this person of Messiah. But not through Adam. Only through the woman. Woman does not pass the sin nature on to the child as a man does. Isn't that neat?
Yeah.
Women, yeah, isn't that nice? Women do not pass the sin nature on to the child. The man does. So Jesus didn't have the sin nature. Okay?
You're positive of that?
That's God, brother.
I'm thinking
Now they may be ornery. Okay? And you may not get along with them real good. They're beautiful, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Can you imagine when God presented Eve, or Isha, literally, Isha. Adam named her Eve later on. Her first name was Isha, which means out of man. When he presented Isha to Adam to say about that, what do you think he thought when he saw that woman? He said, my footprint. That's literally what he said, my footprint. Look it up now in Hebrew. My footprint. My shadow. She looks just like me, but she's a girl. Man, I'm happy. I got me somebody who looks like me, but she's a girl.
You make it sound so good.
It's wonderful, Bill. And he was happy. He was so happy that when she sinned, he decided, it says she ate and kept on eating, that's what it says in Hebrew, and then she gave to him, and he ate and kept on eating. He didn't want to be separated from her. He didn't want sin to separate him from her. And she was deceived, but he was not deceived. He did it because he wanted to do it, because he wanted to be with her. Now, if they'd have had children before, they did this, now they would have had children. But all those children would have been eternal. And all those children would have been without death. But once Adam's sin was infected, his blood was infected by sin, all the children would die. Except for Jesus Christ, the seed of the woman. All right? The son of woman. All right, let's go on. Having been ordained. Diatages. Diataso is where it comes from. Having been ordained through angels. Now, in the hand of a mediator. Now, were there angels involved over in Egypt? We're not talking about the death angel now, because there was one. You hear about the death angel passed over Egypt? Who was that that passed over Egypt? Wasn't the death angel? Who was it? I know every preacher preached that almost. Huh? It was Jehovah that passed over. That, and Jesus is called the angel of God sometimes. All right? He is the angel. He's a messenger of God. He is a messenger to man. Jesus was one of God. He showed forth himself in the person of Jesus. John 1:14. Taho logos sarx aganeto, and the word flesh he became, and Jehovah flesh he became, and dwelt among them. But one time when he passed over Egypt, those that weren't covered by the blood, he killed them. They couldn't stand in the presence of Jehovah. Death. Having been ordained through angels. And then it says in the hand of a mediator. Kere. By the way, that word kere there, that's a Hebraism. That's used one time in the New Testament, that's all. That's a Hebraism. The Hebrew idea. Okay? It's common in the Septuagint. Now, who was the person by whose hand was the law given? Or through whose hand was the law given?
Moses.
Moses. Now, through whose hand was the New Testament covenant given?
Jesus.
Jesus Christ. Who did Abraham see on the mountain? Up there on Mount Moriah, who did Abraham see?
Jesus, God's.
He saw Jehovah, which is Jesus. Jehovah means he who shall become. It comes from the word Ra, or Jireh. It says there, he called that place Jehovah Jireh. And it's translated in King James, the Lord shall provide. But that's not what it literally says. It said twice. He said, in that place Jehovah was seen. The word provide means to see to it. Because Jehovah was seen, and the Lord saw to it. Jehovah saw to it. Jehovah pulled out and picked out this ram in the thicket to take the place of Isaac on the altar. All right? Abraham had given his only son. His only son, because the other one was already gone. His only son he gave up there. And Jehovah said, stop. I know that you believe me. And the Lord saw to the sacrifice. He said, look over there. Jireh. Look over there. Jireh. Okay? And the Lord was seen. Jesus, when he was talking to the Pharisees, they said, you're not 50 years old, and you're talking about Abraham saw you and all this. And he said, Abraham saw me, Lord Christ. And they said, we're going to kill you now. We know that you're a blasphemer. Okay? Ordained by the hand of a mediator. Moses, by the hand of Moses was the law given. But by whose hand provided the sacrifice on Mount Moriah? Jehovah's hand. On the cross of Calvary, whose hand were the nails driven through? Jehovah's. All right? By his hand. All right. 1 Timothy 2:5, Hebrews 8:6, and 9:15, and 12, and verse 24. Romans 5:20, Acts 7:53 and 38, Exodus 20:19, Deuteronomy 5:5 and 33 and verse 2, Galatians 3:16, and Romans 2:23, 2 Maccabees 4:27, and Hebrews 2:2 are cross references to this. By the way, Paul did look at he looked at the Apocrypha. And he lined this up, and he uses words that they use in the Apocrypha, in the Septuagint. That's where Luke borrowed words from the Apocrypha, the writer of Hebrews borrowed words from the Apocrypha, and the Septuagint, and Paul borrowed some of them, and the ideas also. He borrows the ideas from the Apocrypha, from the Maccabees. 3 and verse 20. 3 and verse 20. How can you start that off? Now, do you want to know how to say that? Ho, that's right. Ho, day, mesites, henos, ook. Now, you look at that word ook there. It looks just like it does in Greek and English, doesn't it? Ook. No difference. Ook, estin. Ho, day, theos, haste, estin. All right, kind of a short verse, but there's a lot in it. There's no middleman between Abraham and God. Did you know that? In Egypt, when God got ready to call Israel out of Egypt, he used it through the hand of a man, which was Moses. When he gave the law, it was to the hand of a man, which was Moses. All right? But when he comes to the new covenant, he kind of they take the new covenant. All right? Not the old one. Not the old Berean. But the new covenant, he did it with his own hand. Jesus brought in his kingdom. Right there. He said, I'm the king. 3:20. And the mediator of one not is, but the God one is. All right. Let's look at that now and see what it says here. That's a pretty simple verse. 1 Timothy 2:5, Hebrews 8:6, and 9:15, and 12:24. These are cross references. What do you have there, Rebecca?
Now, a go-between, intermediary, has to do with and implies more than one party. There can be no mediator with just one person. Yet God is only one person, and he was the sole party in giving that promise to Abraham. But the law was a contract between two, God and Israel. Its validity was dependent upon both.
Yep. All right, and Israel failed. You know the only thing that Israel provided in the new covenant? What did Israel provide in the new covenant? What did Israel provide, Brother Bill? You know? What did Israel provide in the new covenant? Dakota. What did Israel provide in the new covenant? Anybody know?
The Bible.
Uh-huh. What?
Choice.
What?
The choice.
Brother Randall.
Messiah came through.
Messiah. The seed of the woman. That's what she provided. Israel was looking for one of the women of Israel to bring forth the Messiah. And one of them did. There had to be one faithful one. There were a few faithful in Israel when the Messiah was born. Not all of them were corrupt. I'm reading a book by Lieutenant Gatewood. He was basically the commissioner over the Apaches in Arizona during the Geronimo Wars, the Apache Wars there. And he said this: there wouldn't have been any Apache Wars if the United States government hadn't been honest with the Indians. Now here is Gatewood, all right? He's saying this. He said they appointed by graft all of the Indian agents that were lining their pockets. Not 1/100 of the provisions that the United States government provided for those Indians got into Indian hands. The Indians were set out there in their wickiups, starving to death. They were dying. Watching the ranchers right next to them, herding their cattle, using their hoes and their shovels to farm their lands and their plows, which they didn't get. And they're looking out there, and now and then they would go out there and steal one of their own cattle that some farmer had lifted from the corrupt Indian agent.
And they're eating their supplies.
Yeah, eating up. He said the beans they eat on their table are the Indian beans. The hoes they use. Why, Marilyn was reading that book to me a little bit. Charles B. Gatewood. He just told it like it was. There was one honest man among thieves. He was one honest man among a den of thieves out there. And they hated him. The Indians liked him. They trusted him. They trusted him. Tom Horn. Tom Horn. Have you ever heard of Tom Horn? You saw the movie Tom Horn? What old Tom Horn? Okay. Tom Horn was raised by Apaches after his life. And he was a scout and an interpreter and a guide. When it came time for Geronimo to make a treaty, they were going to send up an interpreter up there, and he said, I want Tom Horn. We don't like him. The old General Nelson Miles there said, I hate that Tom Horn, because he tells us we're wrong. Bunch of scoundrels. They got out there one time when they killed a bunch of the soldiers, and Tom Horn was sitting there in the back, and he said, where were you when all these guys got killed? He said, right over there. He said, why didn't you go out there fighting? He said, you don't pay me to fight. You pay me for what I know. He said, I think you're on our side. He said, if I was an Apache, I'd be right beside Geronimo. I can tell you. Anyway, Geronimo went up there, and Nelson Miles comes up there, and he has his interpreter go up there, and he brings Tom Horn along. First of all, he didn't want him. He was going to send him. Geronimo wouldn't talk to anybody else. He said, they're all liars. I'll kill them when they lie to me. So they sent Tom Horn up there, and he said, are you telling me the truth? He said, yes. He said, you know. He said, you know, I'll kill you if you don't. Like that. He's an interpreter. So gets up there with Nelson Miles, and he puts his interpreter out there, and he starts talking to Geronimo. So Geronimo sits back there, and this guy is telling him what Nelson Miles says. Geronimo just sits there, and he won't answer him. He said, why won't you answer him? So they finally turn around to Tom Horn, and he says, why won't he answer us? Because he said he's not listening to you. He said he doesn't believe that man. He's a liar. He said, just soon kill him. If he keeps on talking, he's going to kill him. Like that. Finally, he said, all right, you be the interpreter. And so he tells him what he says. He said, this is the man I want because I know he's going to tell me the truth. When God made a covenant with Israel, every man is corrupt, isn't he? All have gone astray. But when God got ready to make the contract of salvation, Jesus spoke himself. He was our mediator. He's our interpreter of God's will in our lives. And he tells us truth. And I'll tell you how much truth. He's put his life on the line. God the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit tasted death on the cross of Calvary to bring us into the fold of salvation, to give us the eternal blessing one of these days. There's no middleman between us and God. He was Jesus Christ. All right, we're going to start with 321 next week. And what is the date?
21st.
21st. All right, I knew the school teacher would have it. Because you had to write it all day, probably. All right. Thank you for being here today. Thank you for coming and studying God's Word. I hope it's a blessing to you. I hope we blessed you here tonight in the class, young lady. And Rebecca, would you mind leading us in prayer and we dismiss our class?
Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for the wisdom that you've given us tonight as we're here, and we thank you for Jim and for bringing him here week after week to teach us. We ask you, Lord, to help us take what we've learned tonight and use it in our lives and to further your glory. In Christ's name, amen.
Good lesson, Jim. Had a little trouble staying up with you there. You had me thinking on stuff. And mine was going backwards and forwards. You wasn't giving me time enough to dissect. So I got some of this.
Do you have any questions?
I had a question about what you were saying about in Egypt when the angel went through. You
When Jehovah
when
passed over, he said, I will pass over.
Well, you said that, okay, you passed over the ones with the blood, but anyone else couldn't stand before God, so they died. So that was the
They were slain
firstborn,
with his
though.
presence.
But what about, that was just the firstborn that died,
That
right?
was the death of his firstborn. Jehovah passed over Egypt when that happened.
But I understand that, but what I don't understand is why only the firstborn were died.
Because they were very special. That was the heir.
Oh,
That was the heir. Now, I don't know. Evidently, the heir, the firstborn of Pharaoh's, had an older brother because he must have died. Because Pharaoh didn't die yet.
right.
So he probably wasn't the firstborn. But his firstborn died, which was going to be the heir to the throne. When that Pharaoh came on the scene and came on the throne, he probably was not the firstborn. Okay, so if you're thinking about that, because sometimes the firstborn died before they ever got to the throne. Because childhood mortality was very high in those days. Any other questions? Yes.
I have a question I think you can answer. Okay. The law, Jesus Christ fulfilled, the law well so that we don't have to follow all the laws.
Yeah.
However, a world without rules is no world at all. So explain to me how we get to this point. Do you know what I'm asking you?
Okay, now, before the law ever was given, back in Noah's day, human government was installed,
Right.
and there was laws. You shall not kill people. You shed blood. Matter of fact, if you even killed an animal, you had to die. Did you know that? They weren't given animals to eat. Israel, if they killed an animal outside of that tabernacle while they were still in the wanderings, they were killed. As if they shed human life. You couldn't kill an animal. I don't know, because the life was in the blood. All right. Now, over here, if you look at the law of Moses, there was a civil law that called for law and order, and there was a ceremonial laws. Okay? The civil laws is what? Divorce, how you dealt with your fellow man, workman's compensation is there. All of that's in there. No, if a government is legitimate, it has to enforce the laws that were established back in human government, and here under civil law and justice and what we call protection.
Law of the land.
Law is to do one thing, to protect man from man and man from the government. Man from man and man from the government. See, because the government can become corrupt. And so you have to have protection against the government also, because you can have corrupt people. And do we have corrupt people?
Yep. Yes. But you don't get the law of the land mixed up with the law of eternal.
Yeah, the law of Moses, the ceremonial law, was
not
clear. But we still have to have law and order, which still is in effect.
Okay, so here's why I'm asking is the age-old question of to tithe or not to tithe and whether we still should.
They tithed in the Garden of Eden.
Right. Okay.
They tithed in the Garden of Eden. Now that is tied up when Cain brought the wrong amount. He didn't tithe. We find out that they were tithing all the way back, all the way through. Before the law, Abraham tithed to who? We have an instance in some. To Melchizedek, the king of righteousness, which was of Salem, the kingdom there. Probably Jerusalem was where he was king. Okay? He tithed. This is all before the law. They were tithing before the law. Even the pagans tithe. Did you know that?
No.
They tithe to their pagan gods.
They do.
They do. They tithe to their pagan gods. And they tithe to their pagan gods because they knew that God's people were always tithing to Jehovah. All right? So that's what the tithe is. We still tithe today.
So in essence, they were following the biblical law.
That's right. And all that the law did was reconfirm the tithe. But that was not all. God demanded the tithe of Israel so they would trust God. If they had the tithe, 1/10 of everything they had, of course they got to keep 90%, maybe. But then they had to offer other offerings besides that. They tithe, and then they gave offerings. Like I've said many times in years past, if you want to give anything to God, you've got to give it above the tithe, because the tithe is already his. It has been since the Garden of Eden.
And what should that tithe consist of? What should it be? Should it be to your church in order to keep the church going and for Bibles and materials and things like that? Or should it be for like what I would call grace giving as to helping others?
Well, see, in the law, they tithe. And Israel did help each other. They helped some of the people that were, but people helped people. So your tithe basically goes to the church, and your extra offerings go to these others.
And that's called grace giving.
Yeah, that's
so
grace giving.
Still be doing both.
Yeah, you're sharing what you have with people that don't have. Stuff happens, and even, well, first of all, under the law, if you got hurt on the job, your boss was to pay for what happened to you if it's his fault. Okay? If you hurt a guy, if you run over him with your ox and you broke his leg, you had to pay his wages until he got well. That's right. If you hurt his mule, not mule, but donkey, or ox, you had to pay for that ox if he was permanently damaged, just like you have car insurance. We pay our car insurance, so the car insurance people will pay if we run into somebody's car and break it. That's all in the law of Moses. It's all there. Matter of fact, we covered a lot of that when I was teaching through the law. There's on the older, I've got the Bible in 8 ages that I teach on Sunday morning, and we went through the law. We're talking about David now, and we'll be in the Solomon pretty soon, and then the temple area and all that. That's all. There's not different stories in the Bible. It's all one continuous truth, all the way down. It is all it does is, and we live in the church age. the civil law is still in effect today in the church age. All the laws that were back there according to each other, man with man, and man with government. Government only is supposed to exist if it protects man. It's supposed to protect man from man and man from the government. All right. Anything else? That it? Brother John? No questions? Got it? Marilyn, Dakota, do you have any questions tonight before we go home? What's for dinner? I know.
Are you cook?
Well, all right. I'm going to turn you loose on the world. Go out and do something terrible.